Welcome to day 2, and I will continue with the second mushroom. We'll also add ultramarine blue. Need a little bit cleaner area here. So light amount of ultramarine blue, a little bit more, and light amount of manganese violet. Now the second mushroom has more smoother head rather than the first one. I would say the first one was the trickiest one. And I'm carefully now applying water around leaves that are on top of the head, and we have 2 leaves and third one is touching the surface of this one. Start with ultramarine blue where the lighter parts are. That is here. And also here we have a beautiful light area. Then here we have shadow, and on top some reflected light area. Underneath the leaves we have shadow, and carefully around leaves I will repeat that. And the second is smoother, so there's shadow, beautiful cast shadow areas under both leaves, like this, and also a little bit further here. Then we have beautiful cast shadow area also under a little bit of this one, and smoothing. So with blue and violet we established lights and darks. While the upper part is drying, we can do same with the stem. Applying water, just enough so watercolors can be moved, no water puddles. Blue on the left side, and on the lower part of this stem, and manganese violet on the upper part under head. The shadow is falling more to the right side, and then we have shadow here. Blending, smoothing. We have lights and darks, lights and darks. Blue is showing where are lights and violet is showing where will be shadows. I also, as I looked after this was done and some time have passed, I see that I have a very big contrast between light and shadow and nothing in the middle. No middle tones, half tones. So I want to add a little bit of half tones with using a little wash, and I'm calming down this transition from light to shadow. Also here on the lower part, a little bit more calmer transition, and it instantly looks better. I use the mix of perylene violet, ultramarine blue, and transparent yellow. Now the upper part of this mushroom is dry, and we have their beautiful brown color that I have from the very beginning, but I will start transparently on top. Move towards the other shadow area. Wash my brush, clean it in paper towel, and smooth applied layer. Carefully around that beautiful stem, which is red, not brown, so be careful with giving brown there. Smoothing the edge of applied watercolors. And then I want to take this golden brown with a touch of brown for the lighter that we have on the lower part. Washing brush and smoothing applied watercolors. Like this. A little bit more of golden. And brown goes a little bit lower. There's this like a spot of brown color. And constantly checking with reference. There are shadows, cast shadow area under leaves. Smoothing this part. There are some lines indicating like some kind of crack. Also here. And then we have cast shadow area under this one. And it goes all the way down. And also here, very obvious. Also, working on the shadow area helps if you are not quite sure what to do. You apply the first layer and you feel a little bit stuck what to do next, how to paint next layers. Those mid-tones are, I think, very often the hardest ones. I always suggest start with shadow. Start with the darkest area, but don't push it instantly super dark, but slowly tackle from the shadow, and then you will get more comfortable moving forward with layers and details. Now here we have this crack, and the area on both sides of this crack is very light, but then it goes dark. So again, I will work on the darker parts rather than worrying about those lighter spots. Adding more color with little brush strokes. So here I have some textures visible, and also there is a lighter area on both sides of that crack. Then we need to add that brown more. top of this mushroom, leaving lighter. There we have a reflected light area, so I want to leave it light. And working on that brown. Remember about those cracks. I want to take this golden color. I will take round synthetic brush to make a glaze. I want to do this golden color glaze here. Just to get a little color tone of this beautiful golden. And then we have a white edge and a little bit visible under the head area. So I will leave a little gap for white line and paint that under part that is visible, maybe even wider than it is visible in reference photo, just to have room for that white edge. And it's more obvious here. And a glaze of that golden here. A little bit there as well. Slowly moving forward. More brown. Definitely more brown. Also with uneven brush strokes, it looks smoother than the first one we painted, but there's still obvious spots. On the mushroom head. And as you can see, I'm leaving gap wider for that crack, but it starts to appear very light just because I'm building contrast around. And there's cast shadow from the leaf. And adding a little bit of golden also to the brown area. Adding more. And more here. Little uneven brush strokes for the texture. This brown goes a little bit lower. And there's some little lines of browner color. A little bit of this golden color. And there's some spots on this part. More warmer brown. And here it's not as light, but there are these very light brown spots. So these two mushrooms are from one species, but they are so different. They were growing together. I took a photo. This is from my city. And it was such an amazing experience to find them because it was already quite late in the autumn. They're beautifully growing together, like meant for this asking to paint them. Now I want to do also add a little bit of brown here, not so much, and another glaze of this golden brown. Also here. Maybe if you lost area for the crack, don't worry, that's okay. Adding a little bit more crisper, darker part for that crack. I think I lost this one. And then this crack goes all the way up and turns, and then it's visible here. Some details of darker spots here as well. Now maybe a little bit of red here and there, just a little bit. And also here. A little bit of violet on top where the reflected area is. And here, I see it here. Now this is this yellow color that we mixed. Applying water. Starting from the lower part, which is darker. Washing brush and pushing up. Leaving little gap of white edge. And then there's also shadow on top, right under this white line edge. Washing brush, cleaning in paper towel, and smoothing. Adding this also on the lower part. Washing brush and smoothing, pushing towards the light. In the middle there's light area. There's even way darker right under that white edge. It goes all the way. There's some folds. Now the upper part is more drier, and I want to add more brown in the middle. I need to mix more brown color carefully around stem. If needed, with the tip painting around. And this goes darker. And here as well. Careful with the tip of my brush, I'm making that stem area smaller, more thinner. Yes, and I want to mix brown. I'm taking round synthetic brush, lemon yellow. Definitely need more lemon yellow. Taking alizarin crimson. I want to get this chocolatey brown and a touch of ultramarine blue. A little bit more. Yes, I like this chocolatey brown. And adding it to the mushroom head. Also here, this area needs more. This area needs more on top. Here. Uneven brush strokes to get the texture that we need. Then there's this obvious edge line where the darker brown ends and lighter brown continues. Also, I see that I need to make this white edge line thinner. And by that edge, the area of that lighter brown is darker. So I'm making it way thinner. Washing my brush and smoothing so I don't have a line there. Taking finer to brush and making even that line thinner. Some spots that we see. Some longer, shorter. So a little bit spots here. Slowly it starts to look as it should. So maybe spots more. More shadow. More layers. And again, with layering, we are achieving what we are aiming for. This could not be done. This richness just with one layer. A little bit for this crack. And this crack is not so light. It's more of yellow. So I'm taking Indian yellow and glazing a little bit of Indian yellow, transparent Indian yellow, lemon yellow. Now a little bit for this under part. Needs a little bit more shadow. And some folds and cracks, and this part of the mushroom that is under the hat is old and crinky and lots of flaws, and even the edge is not, it has little parts of that sticking out. Now the stem area, I'm leaving upper part a little bit to rest. Now the the stem part is slightly different than the first one. I'm connecting those ones. It is more browner rather than gray brown. It's more like warmer brown, and those parts that we were creating here are smaller here, so they're more finer. And I will start with brown, and again the stem part is darker, but we are starting lightly, so closer to the upper part. These little parts are tiny. And then they will go bigger. But also you need to follow the direction of the stem. I'm using brown from the head. This part is way darker, but for now we're just quite light, applying them everywhere to get the texture pattern of the surface, and then we will add darkness and contrast, and as we go lower, those spots are becoming longer. And here they are even longer and paler. In the beginning it doesn't make sense, it looks very awkward, not as the reference, but the same was here. And with effort, time, patience, we managed to make it look like it should. Some are longer, shorter, and keeping light area between wider. And this stem is way more browner than the one on the left. So remember, we painted here blue, which is the lightest part. And also those spots there are wider and longer. I now see that there is a hole here I haven't added in a line drawing, I only now noticed. So should we add there? Let's add. If it's there, we should add. So I'm painting the shadow. Like this. And smoothing. It's more browner, so I'm adding also brown there. Now more little dots on top. Also on this side. There are also some longer spots that are dark. This will help us. And some longer and darker spots in the middle. Also nice. Now taking this brown transparent amount and doing a wash. You see, when I do a wash, the layer underneath shows all those dots. That's called transparency, when you see what is under. And pushing a little bit lower, because all this side is brown, really very light brown. Need more. And this side is super dark brown. My brown is finishing. I'm taking lemon yellow, more lemon yellow, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue. More ultramarine blue, and a little bit more. Some darker spots on the head. Shadow from leaf on the mushroom head. And more darker stem. Some areas here are darker, so some lines here are darker a little bit, here and there. A little bit of darkness to the hole, and smooth. smoothing. Round synthetic brush. Adding layer to the shadow. We need to build shadow. Shadow here is very intense and dark, helping make this stem round and three-dimensional. Now I need to make white area smaller and make those dots more meaningful, I would say. Again, this is the moment that you can really add effort and work more carefully, creating this texture. And don't rush this stage. Also closer to this edge, it becomes also quite dark. And adding more little spots. My brush strokes are like little stippling to create this texture on the surface of the mushroom. Here's something bigger and wider, darker. Two same mushrooms but different stems. That is so obvious. And with realistic painting, all guidances are in reference photo or reference if the real subject is in front of you, and you need to inspect, even if you have maybe visually at first look identical flowers, identical, I don't know, cherries or berries or leaves. Still, in nature, it is so rich in details, and they will have differences, and that will separate illustration from painting if you have those differences added and you manage to look for details, to look for each subject has its own personality, even in nature. And that's beautiful to show that, to capture that. Very interesting to paint these stems and mushrooms. So rich in details. Slowly achieving result I'm aiming for. Even adding a little bit more of darkness under the hat. And as I now compare, I want to add this brown also here. Even it appears different, they have some similarities. So I will add a little glaze of this brown that we used here. I will add it here as well. Transparent amount, light amount in the shadows. And then transparent amount of manganese violet, which is very obvious here, I want to add here. In the shadow. And now they have this beautiful violet shine, similar. Like this. And a little bit here. Very transparent, very transparent. Also here. Glaze, really glaze. Don't overwork. Just a glaze. Then this white edge that we have, it's completely identical, white all the way, but it can't be that way. It's the lightest it can be here, but by the outer parts it should go darker because it's round subject. There's shadow also on the white edges. Very, very light layer. And it does the trick of making it more three-dimensional. And as I look into the reference photo, I see that this red leaf is reflecting red color on the mushroom surface. So I'm adding it here, right under the leaf. And as we did reflected light of this leaf, let's do the leaf. This leaf looks more to the pink rather than to warm yellow, red and yellow. So I'm taking more permanent rose here. Washing my brush, applying water to this leaf. Not too much, just enough for watercolors to be moved. And applying this mix of Sennelier red, permanent rose, and touch of lemon yellow. Painting. Also stem is very beautifully pink and red. Washing brush and pushing watercolors. This part is darker and this is lighter, and then there's a little bit of curved edge, just a little bit. It's not so obvious in the reference, but we can make some little adjustments to make it more interesting, more eye-catchy. Then stem has a little bit of darker edge on the bottom. And a little bit more layers to the darker part of the sleeve, which is the upper part. Also, we need a little bit of color to this side as well. Taking 𝗡𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗏, a little touch of 𝗡𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Middle vein is more of 𝗡𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗏. There's some veins as well. I need to wait for the layer to get dry in order to apply more crisper veins. Like this. We can make with shadow of the mushroom, make that stem tip more crisper and finer, like this. Need to give a few moments for this one to get completely dry. Now the surface of the leaf is completely dry, and I can add a little bit more details, like this little curve that we created, then crisper vein in the middle, secondary veins. To add finer details, it's definitely easier on the completely dry surface. And a little very light vein is visible on the outer part as well. The other side. A little bit more layers to make the sleeve a little bit more detailed, like a little bit more color behind the vein, middle vein, and another transparent layer on the other side, which is definitely lighter but not completely white. Like this. Some finer lines, but don't outline with darker lines the entire leaf. We don't need that. And I'm painting veins like with the last hair of the brush, just touching one little piece. And on the outer edge there's some darker spots, just few, not entirely outlined. And that's it for this part. We did also a lot of work, and on the day 2 in our composition we are here. Mushrooms are coming along pretty nicely, and now next day will be 3 leaves. See you on tomorrow.